Tunde. That's quite important. Thank you for bringing my attention to that. Okay, so like I was saying, if you're installing Blender for the first time, let me go back to. If you are installing Blender for the first time, you likely want to go to preferences and do some minor editing. Now on my own Blender, it will already be done, but it's actually a small thing. Now for most laptops don't have the numpad. So it's so you might need to change the setting because there are some controls there are some shortcuts that are using the numpad. Now let's go to navigation. You want to come to navigation, right? Okay. For one, let me show you something. This, you want to tick this orbit around selection. It's a preference actually, but you might know you may not like it. But me, I think it's actually important because when you're working, you can get lost and the view can just fly out, and it's really somehow frustrating. So you want to tick this. It will usually be unticked, but you want to tick it orbit around selection. Now, if it's not ticked,
Mayo, sorry, please, can you stop sharing and reshare because your sharing is not large currently?
Oh, okay.
So for those that is sharing is not large for, you can also pin his sharing. Immediately you pin it, it becomes bigger for your screen. So you can reshare now again.
Okay. Sorry, please. Whenever I'm sharing and I'm opening Blender and you want to call my attention to something, you can actually unmute your mic and tell me because I'm not actually on this page to see the chat. Okay. So you unmute your mic and you tell me, so you can call my attention to it. So can you see my screen now? Is it large now? Hello?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, it's large. All right, so let me go back to it. So, like I said, this is if you are not if you don't have that orbit around selection selected, when you are orbiting, you can see that when I'm going around, this movement right here is called orbiting, and it's done when you click the middle mouse button. Like I said, you need an external mouse. You click the middle mouse button, you hold it down, and then you drag. That's how you go out. You have this kind of view where you orbit around the whatever you're creating. Okay. Now to select in Blender, you select with your left mouse button or the right mouse button. You can actually edit this, but usually by default to come with your left mouse button. Earlier versions of Blender, the default is right click. But now you can just click with your left mouse and you've selected. Like I can select this object now. I can select this. This right here is a camera. We'll get more into that later on. This right here is a lamp. So I'm selecting different objects. That's how you select. Okay. If you want to unselect, you can just click out, or you select, or you click the object again. Okay. So now, like I said, edit. Let's go to preferences. There's some things we need to do. Let's start from the top, so we work our way down so you understand what each and everything does. So from the interface, you can just look around, just to a bit of customization to your taste. Okay, so there's not really much we need to do here. So yes, like I said, people that are using laptops, this is very important. Go to inputs. You want to come down here to inputs. Now you want to tick this emulate numpad, because when you are working, the shortcut keys to snap into a front view or a side view or a top view or a something view, they are actually the numpads. That's what you use, the numpads, those extra 1, 2, 3 keys on your extreme right of the keyboard. That's for the full keyboard. But for laptops, most laptops have like the short, smaller keyboard version. So this numpad is not there. So what you want to do is you want to click this emulate numpad. Okay. Now, although I don't advise this, I just advise you get an external mouse. If you don't have an external mouse, however, you want to click this to emulate emulates 3-button mouse. You want to click this. Now it doesn't really change much for me because I have an external mouse. But if you do not have an external mouse and you still want to work, even or at least for today, for those of us that don't have external mouse, just click this emulate numpad. Okay. Now what emulates 3-button mouse, but what this does is it simulates that third that mouse wheel. Okay, the mouse wheel that I said if you want to orbit. Let me minimize this. If you want to orbit, I told you hold down the middle mouse button, that wheel, and you pan around. But if you do not have a mouse wheel, if you do not have an external mouse, and you have ticked this emulate 3-button mouse, what you do is you press Alt. Give me a second. You press Alt, you click, and then you drag around. You can see that it's a little bit more stressful in a way, rather than just having to just use your only one hand. But now you have to use 3 hands, 3 fingers rather. You hold down the Alt, you click, and then you drag around with your trackpad. Okay, so I advise just get an external mouse. Right, so that being said, emulate numpad. Now, when you emulate numpad, you'll be able to use your number keys, the one in front, the one on top of your keyboard. For those that don't, for laptops that don't have the numpad, you'll be able to use the 1, 2, 3 down to 0 on the top of the keyboard, right under the function key. You'll be able to use that, and to do the same thing as the numpad. Okay, so actually, those are the major things that we need to do. You might want to go to navigation and tick this. Yes, like I said, tick the orbit around selection, and we're good. When you're done, you can just save and load. Once you save and load, it has implemented the changes, and then you close. We're good to go. Okay, so that's all about the preferences that you want to work around. So now, when you want to snap into particular views, now I'll tell you all the numbers have they have a way of snapping into a particular view. So for the first one, if you press number 1, it will snap into front view. You can see it's written here. Please follow my mouse so because I'm trying to draw your attention to something. It's written here, front perspective. Okay, and if you press just so you know, if you want to snap from perspective view to orthographic view, because if you can see now, it's not really for those of us that did something in line of technical drawing or any kind of engineering drawing or any kind of building drawing. You know that this is not really a front view per se, because it's kind of perspective. You need a front, if you are talking about a front view, it's going to be very orthographic, very blocky. So this is a perspective front view. If you want to go snap from front view to orthographic view, that's the actual flat 2D view one, you press 5. You just tap 5. That's that it's looking like I can't remember the name. Okay, it's looking a little bit more blockish, rather than looking like a perspective.
Orthographic is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you very much. But there's this orthographic. There's something else I was trying to say though. But thank you very much. So it's looking a little bit more blocky now. If you notice, when I tap 5, if I tap 5 again, it will look as if there's a vanishing point. At this point, there's a vanishing point. But if I tap 5, it will look as if everything is just parallel. Okay. So that's orthographic and perspective, snapping into the orthographic and perspective. Now if you now press 1, it will snap into. You can see that it's looking very like a graph sheet basically. You can actually still snap out of this by just holding your middle mouse button and then dragging around. By the way, that's what I do whenever I orbit like this. So when you press 1, you snap into this, then you can just orbit around a selection. Okay. Now 2, we'll just tilt the angle a little bit. It will tilt the angle a little bit. To keep tilting it, once you keep tapping 2, it will just keep tilting in a particular direction. That's the direction it's tilting. So if I'm in 1, for example, when I press 2, that's why it's tilted, a little bit tilted, and then it keeps like rotating in intervals, I think 30 degrees or so. So now 3, we'll go to a right view. That's like the right view. Let me use a different shape so that we can understand the views that this is going. So to delete in Blender is X. I just tap X to bring up the delete option and I press OK. I did OK. So let me do that again so that it don't confuse us. If I press X, just tap. Once you selected what you want to delete, you tap X and then you delete. Now let me add something, a custom shape that is in Blender. It's a monkey head. It's called the Suzanne monkey head. So look at this. It's looking like a friend of mine, but that was by the way. So this let's just use this as our basic object here. So if I want to look at this monkey from the front, I tap 1. You can see that it's showing the monkey from the front now. Okay. Now, like I said, 2 is going to be rotating it slightly, right? Okay, till it comes back to the same spot. That's what 2 does.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay.
Can you please show me how you got these shapes again?
Okay, no, sorry, I'm going to get to that. I just wanted to show you the navigation first. Of course, I'm
okay.
Sorry, don't worry, I'm going to get to. I didn't want to rush before, but I wanted to change the shape because you know a cube, you can't really know which side you're looking at from a cube. That's why I changed the shape to a monkey head. At least you know if I turn like this, you know you're looking at it from the right. But a cube, you won't really know whether you're still looking at the top or not. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Okay.
So now, like I said, 1 will bring it to the front view. 3 will bring it to the right view. You can see that it turned to the right. It snapped to the right. And 7 will bring it to the top view. That's like as if you are looking at it from the top. Okay. 7. Now, if you want to go to the opposite, like 7 is showing you from the top. You want to view the opposite, like showing from the bottom, right? That would be Control 7. You just press Control before the number and show the opposite view of that. So it's written right here, bottom orthographic. So if I want to go to the back, you know, 1 is front, back is going to be Control 1. That's the control and the number. And then the same thing if you want to go to the right. If you want to go to the left, right, 3 is right, then to the left will now be Control 3. Okay. So that's about just snapping into views. Now, still on navigations. Still on navigations, right? Like I said, let me do a short recap. We use the middle mouse button to orbit. Now, if you want to pan, let's say, so your object is somewhere around here, but you want to bring it all the way, you want to bring it back to the middle. There are a few ways you can do this. You can actually just click down the middle mouse button, click it down, then you hold shift rather, then you click it down, and then you drag. You can see that the mouse button is clicked down, but it's not orbiting like this. That's because I held shift down and now I was dragging. Okay, so that's how to pan. So maybe you're walking and your object just flew into the corner like this, and you want to bring it back to the middle. You can actually just pan, bring it back, so you cannot keep orbiting. Okay, and another way you can do this is let's say, but what this does is actually it snaps to the center, the origin of the entire scene. Now, if you look up here, you understand what I mean by origin. For those of us that know a graph sheet, you know what a graph sheet is. A graph sheet has X and Y axis, right? It has X and Y axis. But in the 3D world, there's another axis that makes it complete. There's a Z axis. So when you have an X and Y axis, a Z axis will make it like just like your graph sheet. Anything as 0, 0, that means X is 0, Y is 0 is the origin, right? And when you have 0, 0, 0, for those of us that did something engineering or something related like that, you easily get what I'm talking about. So in Blender, when you see this yellow and red line cross, that's the origin. The yellow line is the Y axis. You can actually follow the reference here. Look at where my mouse is. Follow the reference here. It will show you the axis. There's X, there's Y, there's X axis. So the axis, where the axis intersects, that's the origin. And it's very important to know because anything you add to your scene, anything at your scene will be added to that, or it will be automatically created at that origin, basically. So if I, like I said, if I close this, for example, and I want to add anything to my scene, let's say to add, okay, you that you're asking to add, although we'll go into details of this. To add, I just press Shift A to add, and let me just add a torus, which looks like a donut. You can see that it appeared at this point, at this cross mark. Now that's not always true, but the reason why this appears there is if you import anything, it will appear at the origin. But if you want to add things, it will appear at the cursor. Now the reason why it's appearing at the origin is because the cursor is at the origin. Now it's a little bit counterintuitive, but the cursor can be anywhere. So the cursor is this this red dot, circle-like dot thing over here. That's the cursor. I can put it anywhere in the scene. You can see it's here now. It's here now. It's here now. And the way to actually put that is you just press Shift and right click to put it anywhere you click. Or if you want, let's say what I just clicked now, it's a lamp object. So if I want the cursor to be at exactly this lamp object point, I will press Shift S to bring out this option. Okay. Now I'm holding the Shift S. You know, as if I just pressed it and removed my hand. I'm holding the Shift S. Now you can actually snap it. There are different snapping options here. You can snap it to the selection. You see cursor to selected or cursor to. I will go into details about this. I just wanted to show you something. So let me just snap it to this. Now the cursor is here. So if I should add any object to the scene, it will go to where this cursor is. Right? If I'm to add a cube, you can see that the cube is here and not at the origin now. Okay. So that's the thing. When you add an object, it will go to where the cursor is. But when you import an object, it will go to the origin. You can't. There's no trick about that. It will go to the origin. Or you add an object, it goes to the cursor. Now, like I was saying, that there's a few ways to centralize your object. Like I'm working on this. There's another object here. Don't worry about what I'm doing now. We'll go into details of things later. There are a few objects here, so they seem a bit scattered, right? But I want to bring everything to the center and make my scene centralized. What I can just do is press Shift C. Okay, that's that to somewhat centralize everything in such a way that it will view all the objects that I have in my scene. It will centralize everything. So that's a handy keyboard shortcut to know. Shift C. Okay. Now I just need to mention this. When you're using Blender, there are actual other ways that you can navigate to. It's like the number part, the front-facing orthographic view that I was telling you about. You can actually navigate to it, and people, you want to learn. What you want to do is when you learn Blender, you want to learn it along with the keyboard shortcut. It's very important for your workflow, because when you're doing complex objects, you can't really have time, and there are sometimes that it's a little bit it's somewhat impossible or difficult to actually do some things without using the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so now still on navigation, let's go to moving objects, right? So we have 3 objects in our scene now. We have let's call this a donut. Although it's a torus, but let's call this a donut. We have a cube. We have 2 cubes rather, and this is called a camera actually. For okay, so we have a camera, 2 cubes, and a torus. Okay, now if I want to bring this cube on top of this torus, or I want to stack everything on each other, how do I do that? Now, this way transforms come in. Transforms is just like a way of manipulating objects. There are 3 ways to transform in Blender. You can move an object, you can scale an object, and you can rotate an object. You will likely not be working out of those 3 transforms. Okay, so when you want to move something from one point to another, you don't just click and drag like no. You come here. If you don't have this panel, you can just tap T. Okay, T makes it disappear and come out, or you can just drag this out. It will show you what each thing stands for. So you want to click this move right here. Okay, when you click the move, it will bring out some arrows around the object. Now, if you drag the arrows in whatever direction, to move in that direction only. Okay, to drag the arrow in that direction to move in that direction only. So, like I said, if you want to bring this up on this donut here, let's go to our front view. So I'll have a very accurate movement here. So we can drag this here and then drag this down. Okay, so I've placed the cube on the donut. Same thing, if I want to place this, you select this with the left mouse button, you drag it, okay, and you bring it down. Okay, please bear in mind that we are viewing this from the front view, so this might not will likely not be aligned in the other views. Okay, so if I should go to right view, for example, exactly, you can see that it's a little bit slanted. So let's see what I'm talking about. So let me press 3 again. So you can just I think this is the one that is out of place, so you can just drag it out. Now you might think that this is looking a little bit tedious. You have to be dragging every time you look for specifically click this every time. And if you think that, you're right. Actually, there's a shortcut key for that. The shortcut key for moving objects from one place to another is called G. Is G. Just tap the G for grab. Grab, so that you just remember it easily. Grab. When you tap G, you can move around. Are we following me, please? It's a little bit silent. I feel like I'm talking to myself.
Yes.
Is everyone there?
Yes, we're following you.
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay. Okay, good. So we'll be going details into manipulating objects.
So far, so good.
Okay, good. We'll be going into details of manipulating objects tomorrow, but today I don't want to introduce us to the interface and to the entire interface, basically, so we don't get it. May look a little bit intimidating at first, to be honest. So that's that about that. Now let's start with the very things at the beginning. Please follow my mouse. Okay, so if you click this blender icon, it just bring out a small option about your splash screen. The splash screen is that stuff that showed in the beginning. Yeah, it might be different. Yeah, sorry, please bear in mind the picture here might be different depending on your Blender version. Don't be alarmed, it's not a big deal. Actually, so you can click on the splash screen or click outside to make it disappear. Okay. So edit was where we found the preferences that there are a few options here. You can see to undo something, that's Ctrl Z. Sorry, to redo. Maybe you did something and they now undid it. They now be like, oh, I want to do that again. So you redo, that's Ctrl Shift Z. Now you want to put some of this. Don't worry, as you get to work with Blender, most of these shortcut keys will become very will be at the back, at the tip of your fingers. Okay. So undo history will just show you the list of all the things you've done. Okay. Yeah, you can see all the movements I've done. I moved the cube. If I click on a particular point, it will revert to that point. Okay. So yeah, you can see it's reverted to that point. Okay. So render. Sorry, someone was saying something. Miss Busola, I thought you wanted to say something.
No, sorry.
All right. Okay, moving on. Okay. So this right here, this render option, I don't talk too much on it because it's kind of for a later class. Okay. So the render option is basically a way of rendering generally in Blender. When you hear rendering in Blender or 3ds Max or Maya or any of these 3D softwares, when you hear rendering, it's a way of packaging your creation, your models, right, into a format, maybe video or picture format. Usually picture or video format. Okay, it's like a way of packaging it, and that's just what you need to know right now. I'll talk in depth about it when we get to that class. Okay. So window is just it's just a typical new window, main window, like that. So now these are the major things I want to talk about. This layout model. When you open Blender, by default, these are just layouts. Okay. Now I can manipulate my entire layout to look very different. It's very flexible. So if you come to modeling, the layout is like a preset. Exactly, it's a preset of it will, of course, it will reorganize your windows. It will reorganize your windows such a way that the windows will follow what you are trying to do. Okay, what you are trying to do at the moment. Maybe you are modeling, you are texturing. Bear in mind, Blender is very versatile. Very versatile. You can do a lot of things on Blender. You can do video editing on Blender. You can do texture painting. Something that that have specialized software, something like substance painting. You know, substance painter is specialized for that, but you can also do that in Blender. Okay, you can do animation, you can do 3D modeling, compositing, so many things. So once you click any of this, you can sculpt. Yeah, you can sculpt on Blender too. Something like, if you've heard of ZBrush, yeah, you can sculpt on Blender, and like the name implies, sculpting is exactly what it sounds like. Okay, so you can sculpt on Blender. You can give you unwrap. I'll be talking in depth about all these things. I'm just showing you the interface. Okay, you can see how the layout is changing. The layout of the windows is changing. Don't be alarmed. It's just like some presets, but you can actually customize these layouts to be exactly how you want them to be by yourself. Okay, now Blender was written in Python, or majorly in Python, so that's why you have this script in here. So all the things that we have been doing, moving this from one place to another, doing whatever, and everything that you can do in Blender, you can actually type out in code. Now, this is beyond the scope of this tutorial. I will not be teaching you that for actual value reasons. So, but you can actually type out everything you have done in code. And in fact, if you do anything in Blender, you can come here to this code. Okay, how I got here is I just click the scripting layout. Okay, over here. So you can just come here. You see the code for whatever for what you just did. Like when I did this, I moved this from one point to another. You can see it will add to like the history of the code. Okay, so that's beyond the scope of this tutorial, so I will not be going into that at all. You don't actually need it. Like, you trust me, you don't need it. You never actually use it. So that being said, that's about the layout. Now, if you want to customize the layout, maybe for example, I want this 3D viewport. This place is actually called the 3D viewport, where you can view 3D objects. It's called the 3D viewport. If I want it to be smaller, I can actually just drag this place up to make it smaller. Okay, if I want it to be bigger, whatever way, like, it can actually customize your window to be anyhow you like. And at the same time, you can add more windows. Okay, so this place is called the 3D viewport. Everything here is called 3D viewport. You can change the type of depending on what you are doing at the moment in Blender. You can change it. Down here is called the timeline. Okay, you can see there's like numbers. These are just frames. Numbers are called frames. Okay, so when you are here, you are at frame 10. So this is the timeline. Okay, so that's for animation. When you are doing something related to animation, you're using the timeline. So I can actually turn this viewport into this timeline. All I have to do is come here to this small icon here and click down. These are the type of windows that you can turn any other you can open in Blender. So if I come here and I click timeline, just look for timeline, you can see it's located under animation. Sorry, under animation. There's general, there's animation, there's scripting, data. So under animation, you can see timeline. I just click. You can see that it's looking exactly like this one, only bigger. So I can scroll. If you are scrolling, you're actually scaling it outward or inward. Okay. So you can actually change it to a timeline, change it to anything. I can make this this place here to look exactly like this. Now this place is called the outliner. And what it does is it lists out all the things that you have in your scene. All the things, anything that is in your scene. You can see there's a camera, there's a cube 001. That's because I duplicated that cube. Okay, so that's why it will automatically rename it as cube 001. That's for the duplicate. There's a light and there's a torus. That torus that looks like a donut. So let me change this back to 3D viewports. You can see it here, 3D viewports. Okay. Now, if you want to, let's say I want it in such a way that the 3D viewport is subdivided into 4 parts, where one will be showing the front view, one will be showing the side view, one will be showing the the top view, and another one will be showing the orthographic view, the isometric or orthographic, or the 3D view basically. I can actually do that too. All I have to do is go to the edge here, right? Now be very careful with this because it's a little bit sensitive point. Go to the edge, just the edge that looks as if it's there's a curve, as if there's a small curve there. So you drag it down. Once you drag it down, it will divide the window into two. Once you divide the window into two, you can see it has divided into two. Okay. Now you can actually you can go crazy with this. You can do you can divide it as crazy as you want, but it can be a little bit tricky. Okay. So what I'm trying to do now is just to divide my screen into 4 parts. Now, when it has been divided into 4 parts, like I said, I want this one to be showing the front view. I'll just type 1. Okay, here. I want this one to be showing the top view. I'll just type 7. Okay. Now I want this one to be showing the right view. I just type 3. But I want this one to remain as a 3D view. Okay. So you can see that I'm opening 4 windows. The 4 of them are actually 3D viewports, but they are showing different aspects. And this can be useful. Let's say you are doing something, but you want to see how the object is changing at all the different views at the same time. So let's say if I move this, you can see that the same thing is happening in the 3 views relative to the observer's point. Okay. So that's just that. Now, if you accidentally open too many tabs, let's say you mistakenly did this, what you do is you just go again to that point, but this time you let the point be closer to the window that you want to collapse. Let's say you want to collapse the window, you drag. You can see that it's showing an arrow as if it's dragging this into this. And if I release now, what I did was I clicked with the left mouse button. If I release now, it's going to merge the 2 windows together. Okay, you can see that merge the 2 windows together. Then if I do that, it's merge the 2 windows together. Again, if I do that, merge the 2 windows together. Again here, merge the 2 windows together. Now, something you must note is if you're trying to, the windows that are merging together have to be like the same width, basically. Say for example, if I want to merge this window here to this side, I won't be able to do that because they are not the same. Okay, you wouldn't be able to do that in previous version of Blender. This is actually important, but now in the new version of Blender, they just made it. They added it so that if you should merge it now, it will now reorganize the whole thing. It's a little bit more flexible, but it's kind of a gimmick if you ask me. So yeah, I've merged it now. My layout is looking very weird. Okay, so that's just the basics of the interface, the layouts, and everything. So let me collapse these windows so I'll go back to our default setting. So this is how Blender looks initially. Okay, are we following me, please? Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So okay, so now let me talk about a few things about display mode. Okay, so what we are seeing right now is called the solid display mode. Now there are 4 display modes in Blender. If you are doing a complex object and you want to see through, let me add the Susan head. That's the monkey head again. Shift A to add. Let's go to mesh, and then you bring the monkey head. Okay, so this is the monkey head. Now I want to see, let's say for example, I want to see the back of this monkey's head, the inside of the monkey's head. Maybe there's something I want to model there. Maybe I want to model a tongue, for example. The tongue is inside of the mouth. So how will I do that? There's something called a wireframe display. So to go into a wireframe will just make everything look like as if it's created with a wire. Okay, like the name implies. So you just tap your Z, you hold the Z down, sorry. When you hold the Z down, your Z button, then you bring your mouse over to wireframe, and then you click to snap into your wireframe. Okay? As you can see, everything in my scene is now looking as if they are drawn with wires. That's wireframe display. So now I'll be able to work on the interior of the whatever of the monkey head or whatever I'm working on. This is just this is usually more applicable in when you're in edit mode. Okay, I'm still going to that right now. So that's wireframe mode. And if you notice, when I tap the Z, there are four options here. There's render, there's solid, and there's wireframe. Now, like I said, what we were in before was the solid view. If I go back to solid view now, you see that everything became blocky and it's visible. Okay. Now I can actually see materials. Like materials are a whole new thing. Is beyond the scope of this class. We'll be talking about it in I think next week or so. So what materials are is just basically like the like I said, like its name implies, material. Like this monkey head might be made of metal, and this one might be made of wood. This might be made of this. This might be made of whatever. So those are different materials. Okay. Now everything here is shown as plain gray. This thing now in the solid view. But if you want to know the material that each of them are made of, you can just come to material preview, material view. Then come to material view. Now all of them are white because I've not applied any material to them. Yeah, no, let me apply different material so you see. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I just wanted to show you. I know. Let's make this anything go crazy. You can see. So this one is green. This one is that. Now, if I go back to solid view, everything is gray. But if I go back to material view, to show the specific materials like of that each one is made of. So if this one was made of metal or whatever, it will display as metal and display as this. Okay, that's for material view. Now, reason why if you're working in Blender, usually you want to stay when you're working. If you're not dealing with material, you want to work at solid view. If you have a more sophisticated system, this will matter. But if your system is anything less than Core i5 or Core i3 or less than sharp, you will likely be working. It will likely be slower if you are in material view. The interface might start running slower, start lagging, especially if you are in rendered view. I will go to rendered view shortly. So you want to, when you are working, you want to stay at at solid view, so to be able to work. Your Blender will run smoothly. But when you go to material, because Blender is actively trying to calculate whatever material each one is made of, and you can make materials very complex. And the more complex the material, the more your Blender will be lagging. The more your Blender will be lagging, depending on the nature of your system. Okay. So now the last one is rendered. Okay, rendered. Now rendered, you can see that the whole interface is changing. It's looking a bit different now. Rendering is a whole new topic on its own. I won't be talking too much on rendering this class, but rendering is like it's a way you display, is what you display when you package your entire scene, how it will look like. That's what rendering will show you. Okay. Now material will only show you the material, it will not show you how it will look like. But rendering will show you how it will look like with respect to lighting, with respect to reflections, with respect to anything sophisticated thing that you added to your scene, with respect to shadows. Yes, with respect to shadows, with respect to reflections. Like I said, that's how rendering will show. Rendering viewports will show you. Now you don't want to display this too much, because okay, I won't be talking too much about this in this class. There are two render engines in Blender, but let's ignore that for this class. So rendering, you don't want to be working in rendered view because your system will be lagging seriously. The reason why it's not lagging, this one is not lagging on my system, is because I'm using a slightly less aggressive renderer in Blender. There are two renderers in Blender, render engines in Blender. There's a Cycles render engine, Cycles, and there's the Eevee render engine. Okay. Please call me back if there's something I mentioned that you don't understand, so I won't just be spinning across. Okay, so there's the Cycles and the Eevee render engine is a little bit more forgiving in the sense that you can actually still walk around in real time, and you'll still be seeing the effects of, like I said, hey, you see this object that I selected at that time. I told you it was a lamp object. Now I can see how this lamp object is interacting. You can only do this in Eevee. In Cycles, it will seriously be lagging my system if I'm going around like this. Let me go to Cycles render engine so you see what I mean. don't worry about how I got there. It's just I just want to make an illustration. We'll be talking about this in depth in a later class. So let me go to cycles. Now you can see that it's as if everything is pixelating. Now if I stop then it's now starting to come together. If I stop orbiting, if I do any form of movement again, it's still pixelating. If I stop, it's coming together. If I move this, that's what rendering is. That's what rendered view shows you. It shows you how the object will be in the real when you've rendered and packaged it together. It's going to show the light interactions, the reflections, the whatever. Okay, so let me go back to the solid view. Now, like I said, the shortcut keys, everything that has a shortcut key has a actual long way method of doing it. You can actually all the view that I tap Z and go to solid, tap Z go to material, tap Z go to web wireframe, tap Z go to this. You can actually click it. These are the buttons for that. Okay, you can actually come here and click the solid. It goes to solid mode. This is actually a wireframe. You can, if you don't know what it is, you can just hover your mouse over it and it will bring down the option and you can read what it's the name of whatever you're hovering over. So this is the material view. You click it to show the material. Okay, and this is the rendered view rather. You can click this and show the rendered view. Okay, so let me go back to the solid view. Now this is just an introductory class to show us the interface, so we don't get too scared of the interface when we're working. And tomorrow we'll be starting properly. We'll be starting with modeling, like we'll be going very aggressively, and it will be very interactive. That's why it's very important for those of us that are not with our systems today or that have not installed Blender. Please do so. It's very important because I'll be calling on us. You'll be sharing your screen and you'll be doing some things as I instruct. Okay. So that's that about all the display modes in Blender in the 3D viewport. Okay, so let's come to this window. Like I said, this is the outline. I think I said that earlier. It will show you everything in my scene. So now in my scene, I have 5 things. No, I have 6 things. Okay, there are 2 cubes. There's a torus. There's a lamp. This small object is a lamp object. And please, you notice that as I'm clicking it here, it's also highlighting it on the outliner. Like the name implies, outline. It outlines all the things I have in my object in my scene. So this is cube. This is the camera. Like I said, this is the camera. This is Suzanne monkey head. Just say Suzanne here. Okay. So if you want to select anything in Blender, you want to select or you want to deselect. If you want to select, you press. Okay, you want to select everything in your scene. Like you can actually just press A to select everything in your scene. And if you want to deselect everything in your scene, you tap A twice to deselect. You want to select everything. Let me do that again. You tap A as in A, B, C, D. You tap A. If you want to deselect everything in your scene, you tap A twice. Okay, so good. That's that. Now let me show. I think I was talking about the transforms, the different way of manipulating objects. And you want to bring this object to space. You either use the mouse button to, the arrows here to bring it, to constrain it. You notice that when I click the arrow for, like this red one is the x-axis. You notice that when I click the x-axis, it showed one imaginary red line to show that it is only moving on that axis. So if I move this, it go around to see that it's only moving on that axis, so it's being constrained to that axis. Okay, take note of some things that I'm saying. Constraint is these terms are important because they are whenever you're trying to do some other thing, whenever you're doing things in Blender, you have to know the names, so you easily find them when you're looking for them. Okay, so the same likewise for any other axis. This is Z axis. This is the y-axis. If you don't know, the axes are not labeled here. They are labeled here, so you don't need to cram them in your head or anything. Just come here. You can see that the green one rather. The green one is the y-axis. The red one is the x-axis, and the blue one is the z-axis. Okay. So now what happens when you want to just move things and on two axes and exclude one axis? Now let me show you how to do this with the clicking of the keyboard, with normal clicking, and I'll show you how to do with the shortcut key. Okay. So now you can actually do this by, if you notice at this when you see this gizmo, this move gizmo is called a gizmo. When you see this move gizmo, there's like a small square between two axes. Any two axes, there's a small square. Okay, so that square is showing that if I click on this square now, it's going to move along along Z and X axis, along the axis that are bounding the square. Okay, so it's going to move along this X axis and this axis in a 2D space. So if I move, it may look as if it's moving in 3D now, but it's because I'm actually looking at it from just one point of view. So if I come here now, and I come here, you can see that it's still at the same plane, okay? So same goes for all the remaining squares. The same rule applies. And do that. The shortcut way to do this is you press. You need to know the axis, okay? So if I told you to move is grab, but grab will just move in random any axis. It's moving all the axes relative to your view, okay? So when you press G, then you now press the axis that you want to constrain it to. Let's say you want to move on only Y axis. You press G, and let me do that again so you see it. So you select this, you tap G, then you now tap G for grab, then you now press Y, for example, to move on only the Y axis. Okay. So you see that I didn't have to click the mouse button, the arrow to move this. Also for X axis and Y axis and Z axis, G, then X axis, same thing, G, Z axis, same thing. You tap the Z key on your keyboard. Now if you want to move along two axes, like that's like you are moving along a plane, not along an axis now. You're moving along a plane. What you're going to do is you tap G, then now press Shift and exclude the axis that you are not moving along. So let's say if you want to move along X and Y axis, you hold Shift and you press. If you're moving along X and Y, you hold Shift and you press Z. So it will exclude Z axis and use only X and Y axis. Okay, so that's just the way to do it. So you press G, Shift Z. You can see that it's moving along only the X and Y axis. Now all these shortcut keys are quite handy when you're working on bigger projects, and it's trust me, to make your workflow very easy. So you want to put a lot of the keyboard shortcuts in mind. Okay, so that's that. We'll be ending the class shortly, but I want you to actually go in after the class or during your own free time. You just open Blender and start clicking around. Get curious, get familiar with the interface. Okay, so you don't get so it doesn't get confusing. Now there are a lot of settings here that I didn't really talk about. It's not as if I forgot. It's actually because if I talk about it in this class, it's just going to confuse you. It's better we speak about them in later classes. Okay. So everything here, we'll talk about everything. Don't worry, we'll cover everything in the interface. I'll show you that. So so that's that about the movements and everything, transforms. We'll talk tomorrow. We'll be talking about objects, how we actually manipulate objects, and how we, like this cube now. You'll be wondering, is it only a cube or a monkey head or this that you can actually create in Blender? No. You can create anything, literally anything in Blender. So you have to manipulate the object. Okay. We'll be talking about vertices, edges, and faces tomorrow. We'll be talking about the different edit tools, because we're going into edit mode. Okay, sorry, I didn't speak about this aspect. This here is for different kind of object. Okay, we're talking about different type of objects too tomorrow. For a mesh object now, a mesh object is just basically any shape, actual shape object like this. So this camera is a camera object. There are different types of objects because different rules apply to them. Okay, so that's why there are types of objects. So we'll be talking about types of objects tomorrow. We're talking about the different modes in the each type of object. So, like for example, I clicked on this light object, and if you notice when I click this drop down, there's nothing else. Okay, but when I click on the cube, for example, when I click this drop down, it's like 5 different or 6 different options that you can actually do. Those are 6 different things that you can 6 different modes that you can use to work on the same cube. Okay, so different objects have different rules. So that's why we'll be talking about that by tomorrow. Okay, so this class is coming to a close. I don't want to overwhelm us in this class because it's just an introductory class. By tomorrow, we'll be going very, very much in depth. We'll start going in depth, and it will be a lot more interactive. So for those of us that don't have our systems with us, please do so. And those of us that have not installed Blender, Blender is an open source